sense. Rathermore, if work is meant for production, work is evidently the concept that names the inner relation between building and destroying, that plays within technology, and that is the form of modern civilization. Work, which plays a major role in Marx's understanding of capitalism, is not only reducing people forced to work by the economic system to becoming machines. It is not only a mechanization that should be seen from the standpoint of human condition. That's Marx's mistake. Socialism there misses some points because it is, as Nietzsche criticized it, fundamentally a humanism, and therefore belongs precisely to this metaphysics that leads to the general exploitation of human beings through work. Socialism appears thus to be self-contradictory and can't escape this contradiction. What is missed in the concept of work is the fact that it is a production, and that the production is double-sided. On one hand, it produces human biomachines that are more than exploited, since they are used as a force that has to be completely consumed, death. A resource of work that's concentration camps, slavery, and work in colonized parts of the world used systematically. On the other hand, it produces goods, pleasure, and it is linked with the lust for wealth of those who are enjoying both the product and the way of production. It is organized. In other terms, it satisfies the libidinal, ambivalent pulsion of those who are able to organize the politics in such a way that it obeys the finality that they believe it should have. This finality that has its value in itself, and that Aristotle calls happiness, which he equates with a sovereign good. The organization of work that provides happiness by producing satisfaction, both through the property of the product and the annihilation of the producer, achieves the old metaphysical project of politics, which is a technique for Aristotle that is meant for providing happiness through the capitalization of goods that are both a consuming of property, an appropriation for consuming what is proper to the owner, and an accumulation of knowledge, or rather science, according to the words Aristotle uses. The collusion of techniques and science is inscribed within the concept of technology, of which the essence is the universalization of work. Techniques provides the production of goods through exploitation, while it increases scientific knowledge that is supposed to offer the maximum pleasure and is looked for precisely for pleasure in the rhetoric of Aristotle, at the core of work that unifies its production and annihilation, production by annihilation, and annihilation as production, lies the political goal of pleasure that is both individual and collective. Politics, revealed finally as being technology itself, is based on pleasure. However, pleasure is ambivalent. It is always the pleasure of possessing and the pleasure of annihilating what one possesses. It is hidden within the structure of production that the concept of work started to uncover, like the ambivalence of love and hatred, or rather, the ambivalence of the impulse to construction and annihilation, sociability and cruelty, that are grounded into the two Greek theatrical passions of pity and terror, and that have been proposed by Freud against a great resistance among his contemporaries and even the psychoanalysis circles. The essence of technology reveals itself only through the installation of extermination camps that were meant as a performative administration of mass extermination through a chain of work process, from killing people through work up to burning their bodies and pulverizing the remnant bones of the burnt bodies. This process has its source in the ambivalence of pleasure, and this ambivalence can be performed fully only in the process of extermination in places of which the structure is a system, uncovering by the same way the nature of any system. It had been sketched much before Marx and Freud in sad literature, and more specifically in his terrifying books, The 120 Days of Gomorrah. The second point I would like to remind with history is the long collapse of the whole Middle East since Bonaparte's invasion of Egypt after French Revolution. The Russian colonization of Caucasus and Central Asia during the 19th century, the eradication of 10 million Muslims from the Balkans, and the erasing of all trace of Ottoman presence in these regions. For instance, in Serbia, where you can go, there is no Muslim remnants, but the Muslims were the majority. The extreme violence of the colonization of Africa and Southeast Asia, mostly by democratic regimes, France and Great Britain, or a social monarchy like Germany, with the first genocide in the 20th century that took place in Namibia. All these elements should lead to reconsidering politics, and mostly the impossibility of assigning guilt to regimes that are easily called fascists, while the wildest colonization has been achieved by democracies. And still go on, for instance, with American exportation of inner violence in the whole world, a country that is based both often on an achieved genocide of the Indians and a structural racism, and yet is a democracy. These points should not lead to diminishing the terrible and horrific nature of the Armenian genocide. However, it should place it within the processing of 20th century history, in which mass slaughter, and more precisely genocides, have become the way both politics and war are performed. It is also to be considered as a legacy of French Revolution that changes the status of people, making them at the same time pure individuals, both deprived of any link to any community and mathematically singular, and equal brothers within the body of the nation that is supposed to be the truth of their existence. Individuation and fusion within a body are supposed to produce a mathematical equality that allows to bring the people into a general calculation of population and make any individual substitutable but with any other one within the national body. Each individual is both submitted to the law of the body and as its parts, and the end of the body that ensures him an eternal happiness of being a member of a holy body that justifies him. Its individual sacrifice ensures its belonging to the body and its justification. Happiness takes place in the self-satisfaction of being this absolute self, what Aristotle achieved through the practice of morality. This happiness, however, can be achieved only politically, and requires the grammar of the ambivalence pleasure in which logic finds its achievement. The intensification of war, up to the dissolution of war, in mass extermination that obeys no law of war, ended in playing a major role in modern politics. It is a transformation that we are not yet able to think at length, since we are still in the process of this transformation. I have stressed on the legacy that this modern politics inherited. However, many of its present forms show a mutation that, though it could be expected, was only a probability and not the necessary achievement of a possibility. The intensification of war places all human beings under the permanent probability of total annihilation. War itself is, since the beginning of 21st century, understood as what takes place everywhere and anywhere, and is not limited in time. It is spaceless and timeless, or rather, it testifies for us that we are from now on deprived both of space and time, the way they used to be known and the way they were giving the possibility of the world, like what Heidegger in what is metaphysics, following the meditation of time and being, has called anguish, which is our witnessing of the slipping away of being in front of us while we are ourselves slipping back into nothingness. The intensification of war that is still a position decided by states produces a transformation of politics that is not anymore the building of a people throughout the thoughts out of the model of sculpture and aiming at producing the people as a work of art, both beautiful and moral, but as the generalization of terror. Genocide is the way terror is spread and generalized as being the way the universal body of humanity is justified through its self-sacrifice. That everyone from now on is exposed to the probability of genocide is the way. Sacrifice is globalized, or rather universalized, and therefore achieves the spiritual goal of a universal body of politics. At the same time, terror is the instrument by which sacrifice is actually performed by forcing all individuals to work and produce pleasure through its self-annihilation. It has been now 2 centuries that the large Middle East from India to the countries of the Sahel, the Balkans, the Caucasus and Central Asia are caught in a process of modernization in which mass slaughters have been generalized. The Armenian genocide is unfortunately not the only terrible slaughter that took place in these regions. It has something exceptional in the context of more than 14 centuries of confrontation between Muslim rulers and Christian rulers, since Armenians were Christian. However, complete Muslim populations have been eliminated from the Caucasus in the 19th century, like the Cherkess, from Greece following the Greek War of Independence, and from the Balkans during the whole 19th century. The colonization of Algeria by French can be easily counted as a repeated genocide, both during the first process of colonization and second during the War of Algeria between 1954 and 1962, according to the international definition of genocide. The last genocide in Europe has been the one targeting the Muslims of Bosnia, and we could add to it the genocide in Chechnya. The list is infinite. It is linked with a process of systematic homogenization of populations in this region, a process of establishing master political systems, and the attempt of creating a Middle Eastern citizen that would finally politicize the Middle East that have always resisted any politicization. This process is still going on, and everyone can witness how much the Middle East is in a total chaos, and how much Western policy in the Middle East results in a massive slaughter and displacements of population. Whatever the chaos might be, though one would think it as one of many political failures, I would argue that one should wonder whether it were not a political achievement, and the way politics actually cannot but be performed in our late modernity. The intensification that results in the massification of slaughtering from the crime of one simple individual to a slaughter of masses of people, with a systematization of technological weapons and other means, might obey to a social, psychological rule that generalizes by contamination the monstrosity of a single individual, as one sees in tragedies to masses. Such an hypothesis leads to the more general problem that was shaped in Paul's theology, of how the singularity of the Son, Christ, can be communicated and disseminated into the individual, so that can be melted within his body, the political bodies. It could be abstracted into the question how one is led to renounce his secular in singularity so as to become a mechanical part of the messianic body of politics. The solution to it, I would say, and I will cut, you can read the text, you have it. The solution to it is, as you know, a Eucharist, Christian Eucharist, in which you are supposed to eat Christ's body so that Christ can absorb you in his own messianic body. So there is a double eating or double absorption of the Christian and of Christ. So yeah, I know it is late. Just I would like to add something. It doesn't work. Hello? Yeah. Just I would like to add something more generally about Turkey and this Armenian genocide. Just some observations that I have found thinking about Turkey while living there. Turkey is a very strange country because, as you may know, it doesn't work anymore. Yeah. As you may know, Turkey is a creation of 20th century. The same if you consider the Ottoman Empire, it adopted the name empire only in the late 19th century. So we have a strange structure that it doesn't work. It is dead. I killed it. That's a kind of murder. And yeah, so very strangely, when thinking about it, when you look at the Turks, in Turkey, the only people that are not a people, it's very offensive what I say, and it's a little bit dangerous for me, so please keep it for yourself. The only who are not a people are the Turks. The Turks are not a people.